The forecast for this morning was clear skies, it's so overcast, and my mind was set on a beautiful sunrise. And I found a beautiful pine tree, but there's nothing to see except the pine tree and my composition. And if you watched the previous video, I told you the first photo of the day is always the worst, and in this case I think it's also going to be the same. I guess I have to change my mind up and shoot differently today and adapt to the environment and not letting the thoughts or the expectations control this day. Otherwise I'm not gonna shoot anything. I was even hesitating to shoot this photo because the sky is just grey, but the composition on its own, it's okay, and I like the tree or how it's shaped. And we got some on the left side of this pine tree. We got two smaller trees without leaves, but how they're placed, it intrigues my creativity, and I think it adds a little bit to this composition. But a beautiful sky would be more interesting for this composition. But the positive thing about this overcast weather is we got the whole time of the day to search for compositions, because I'm not relying on any light that's changing our stuff. Yes, I know. I told you in the previous video my tail lens is broken. It didn't do anything anymore. I had to try again, and I just took a practice shot and the shutter went, so I took a photo with the tail lens. So I'm making a composition right now in this beautiful landscape to shoot again with the tail lens. I don't know how it's gonna behave, if I can adjust my aperture and adjust my focus point. So let's see and hope it will do something. So it worked. I finally took a photo again with the tail lens, but it was a little bit of a struggle to when I press the shutter button, it doesn't always do anything. So maybe I had to try a little bit more in the previous video when I was trying to shoot that beautiful tree. But now again I had to give a tap onto the tail lens and press the shutter button. Then it took a photo. The struggle now is it's a little bit difficult to get my focus point right, because I was focusing on a tree and my foreground was in focus, but the tree was out of focus. So now I had to focus a little bit more into this. I had to focus further away into this composition to get the tree in focus that I want. And what I'm trying to do with this composition is really draw our eye to the trees that I'm photographing. The landscape a little bit further here is a little bit hill up. So on the bottom side of this composition we got some purple heather, but it is brown now because we are in winter. And I don't want to have the foreground in focus, because I want our eye to be drawn towards the birch trees and a pine tree that I'm photographing here in the landscape. So I'm not photographing in f8, and I think that's some kind of rule that we are all following, that we have to photographing in f8. And for a lot of photos it's okay, because most of the time a lot of times we're photographing a vastness of a landscape and we want everything to be in focus. But sometimes, like I'm doing right now, is I just only want to have focus on the trees that I'm shooting, or I want to draw our eye towards those trees that I'm photographing. So I dropped my f number f4.2, and with dropping my f number in this composition, I'm making the bottom side of this picture more out of focus, because I don't want to have this brown header in focus in this composition, because it's just a foreground element, but it's not special, so I don't want our eye to be drawn towards that piece of the photo. So I don't know if you're somebody that's always photographing around f8, because a lot of times I'm also photographing around f8, f10, 11, but sometimes we have to change that, and sometimes it feels a bit like an unconscious burden or a rule that we have to follow, that we always have to photograph with the f8 number. But I think if you want to be more creative, we should try to do it less and try different f numbers. I also did it in the past with photographing trees, and it works perfectly to just get the background a little bit more out of focus, and the foreground to just make that tree stand out a little bit more from out of the landscape. If you're photographing mountains, I would say go with f8 or a little bit higher, and get everything in focus, because you want to showcase that beautiful vastness. But like what I'm doing today is more like, I guess, nature photography instead of landscape photography, because I'm not showing really the landscape. So I think using a lower f number is a little bit more creative and made the photos a little bit better, especially in this kind of weather where there's nothing to see in the sky or surrounding the trees, no lights, no sunlight. I just thought by myself, I saw some green grass a little bit further into the landscape. There's grass here. I was like, whoa, that's green, but it's a go of terrain, so that's why it's so green. Yeah, today is a little bit more difficult to find nice compositions. I've been walking for a long time now, and from time to time I see a composition, but it's just not super special with super soft lights, and I don't want to bother you guys with some basic photos that are, in my eyes, are not super special. Maybe you guys are like, Joris, just show us, maybe you can learn something from it. Let me know, and next time I will try to do my best to show you my process, even with boring photos. I'm just looking around, so if I'm not looking at you, I'm trying to search for compositions here in the landscape, or now in this forest where I'm in now, because I'm seeing plants over here on the sides. You see those light greens, they're like attracting me, and I want to do something with it, but what is the question? What can I do with it? So I guess today there will not be a lot of photos in the video, especially not good ones, just the mediocre photos. I'm talking so bad. I have to be more positive. It's a beautiful day, and I'm enjoying my walk in nature, and I'm looking around for the nice things to see. If I'm gonna be more positive, I will find nice compositions. Oh man, I'm just rambling away. Laying onto the ground for the next composition, and I think it's called adapting. I was looking more for the big things, but with this kind of weather, no sunlight and not an interesting sky, I started looking more into the landscape, but for the smaller parts in the landscape. Mountain bike is coming by. So now I'm looking for the smaller details in the landscape, and I found some beautiful mushrooms. I'm not entirely sure how I should photograph them, but I'm trying to photograph them in portrait orientation, and I think I'm gonna do a small focus stack. I want to show it with a smaller depth of field because I'm shooting at f2.8 for this composition, because I want to have the background totally out of focus, because we got some branches or small young trees in the back of this photo, and I don't want our eye to go to those trees, so that's why I'm trying to shoot it with a smaller aperture, just to have our eye focused on the beautiful mushrooms. I've been doing some light painting with my cell phone on those mushrooms here in the landscape, or on this tree stump, just to make it a little bit more interesting, because the light was a little bit too flat. I can also do it in post with a radial filter in Lightroom to make it a little bit more interesting, but with just painting in a little bit of that light, it's gonna be a little bit nicer. It's gonna look a little bit more interesting. It can be that I'm gonna leave the mushrooms on top in the back. I'm gonna leave them a little bit out of focus and just have the top ones in focus, because now with the light painting it's gonna be, I think, a little bit more difficult to blend in that light softly and having those mushrooms in focus. Because my first thought was I'm gonna do a focus stacking to have them all in focus, but then I was shining with my cell phone onto those mushrooms, but some parts are too bright. So if I'm gonna paint that light in and I didn't do a good focus stack, it can be that the mushroom is gonna be a little bit out of focus because of the light painting that I'm brushing in. If you understand what I'm trying to say, so it can be that the back mushrooms are just out of focus. It was a nice photo walk, but it wasn't amazing. But if it would be always amazing, it would get boring too, but it was a good one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. So I'm shooting again in portrait orientation to capture the moving water, the flat rocks here in this mountain, and then our beautiful beech tree. I went up the hill on the wrong way. I hope I can find that cool place.